Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto Two Blue Vortex discussion. Today, I want to talk to you guys about something that's been on my mind ever since the last manga chapter dropped, which is now that Yodo has been stabbed by Ryu and he's pushed his iron sand deep into her guts to the point where it exited out of her body from the other side. I want to take another look at the situation that she now finds herself in and ask the biggest question that is in the room right now, wants to get past all the hype surrounding Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan power, which is whether or not Yodo is going to be the first person who dies from Boruto's generation, and really and truly the first real character we've had die in the manga that we've actually had a name attached to them. Join me in today's newest Naruto Explain video, where I take what I hope is going to be viewed as an unbiased and honest discussion on Yodo's situation. As a quick reminder, the chapter review for chapter 20 is up on the channel right now, so check it out if you haven't already. The video will be linked in the end credits and the description box. And if you are a One Piece fan, over on my Everything One Piece Explained channel, we have our first lore video up on the channel, breaking down the Gomu Gomu no Mi Devil Fruit. This isn't a podcast style video like the blind reviews. This one has actual editing, so check it out if you're a One Piece fan. So jumping right into it, I'm gonna say it right away. Boruto's manga is in a tougher spot than I think a lot of people realize, and what happens with Yodo next is gonna be pretty huge. While I am on record saying I think Sarada's other Mangekyou Sharingan power is going to play a role in Yodo being saved, that video will be in the description box. But like we do with all topics here on the channel, I want to provide a platform for the opposite stance by asking if Yodo will die, and should Yodo die at all. Outside of the Jonin who Jura killed, characters we haven't met or even been given names for, death has always been something that's been pretty non-existent in the manga so far, which is why I'm mostly skeptical that Yodo does die here. But let's go even deeper for a moment. So let's first look at why Yodo is unlikely to die in Boruto Two Blue Vortex and the stakes issue that you have with a lot of gateway shonen, which Boruto does classify as a gateway shonen, given that Naruto is the parent series and Naruto is one of the biggest gateway shonen in history. So Yodo's situation in Boruto Two Blue Vortex, it seems dire on the surface. She took a stab wound that exited through her back and a seemingly fatal injury with no medical ninja presently on the battlefield. By all logic, this should be a death flag. This should be it. We should be having funeral arrangements made in the Sand Village right now. However, the Boruto series has established a pattern of avoiding killing off named characters, particularly when it comes to allies, which makes it highly unlikely that Yodo does die. So here are a few reasons I do think she is likely to survive. The broader implications of Boruto's reluctance to kill off characters, and why the story, in my opinion, will soon need to commit a major death to maintain the tension. And let me clarify, by soon, I don't mean the next chapter or the next 3 chapters. I mean, in terms of story progression, within the next 2 or 3 arcs, I do think you need to pull the trigger at some point. So this could be anywhere from 3 to 4 years. So here's why I think Yodo likely survives. Shonen tend to have a fake out pattern when it comes to deaths, and Boruto in particular does this quite a bit. Boruto's manga has consistently relied on fake out deaths when you go back and read the manga. Several characters, they have suffered critical injury or been set up to where you think they might die, only they do survive due to last minute rescues or unexplained healing, or in the case of Kurama, they just fall back onto something established in Naruto. Not a plot hole, but there were people upset that Kurama came back to life. So Inojin's fatal wound and Himawari's sudden healing is the first one to look at, since it is the most recent. Inojin was impaled by Jura in Boruto Two Blue Vortex's manga in what should have been a fatal injury. However, Himawari's sudden power awakening miraculously saved him. Kashin Koji was seemingly about to die, and then he managed to escape and he healed off screen. Momoshiki also had a resurrection of Boruto. Boruto was killed by Kawaki, but Momoshiki used his remaining data to bring Boruto back to life, reversing what seemed like a definitive death. And also, most importantly, it allowed Momoshiki to stay alive. That would have been a very easy way, the wrong decision, but it would have been an easy way to get rid of Momoshiki in that regard. Then you had Kurama's death in return. Kurama's death in Boruto Two Blue Vortex was a rare moment of finality, yet even this was reversed with his return in Boruto Two Blue Vortex, showing the series' reluctance to commit to major losses. Again, Biju are always going to be resurrected, so it made sense, but had you wanted to go the route that you did with burial mode, you did have the opportunity to tweak the lore. Either way is fine. Given this pattern that we have, Yodo's statement that the end is near, I'm paraphrasing what she said, it doesn't necessarily mean that she will die. The Boruto series often builds up the illusion of a major loss only to reverse it through external intervention. Now, the next thing I have to look at is Sarada's possible role in saving Yodo. I won't repeat the stuff I talked about in the last Sarada video that we did here on the channel, but Sarada's presence on the battlefield, I do feel, is going to be a key reason that Yodo may survive. She is in a similar situation to Himawari during Inojin's injury. Outmatched, desperate, and needing a push to grow stronger. If her Mangekyou Sharingan is going to manifest a new ability, Yodo's near-death state could be a catalyst. This will parallel Himawari saving Inojin by awakening her power. This would also parallel Sasuke using Amaterasu for the first time in Naruto's manga, and Obito awakening his Mangekyou Sharingan and tapping into Kamui after seeing Rin die. While Sarada likely won't fully awaken, say, a new ability like Izanagi, and she's not going to use Izanagi here because it would literally undo a death if Yodo died, and in the manga at no point has Izanagi been applied to anyone other than the user. If you saw anything that said otherwise in the anime, that's anime filler, never took place in the manga. But the thing on that is that even if you allow that in there, she would lose her Mangekyou, which is pointless. She would lose an eye. There's going to be something Sarada does that could heal Yodo. Now, there's also the bigger issue at play, which is Boruto as a series, the reluctance to kill off named characters. Aside from villains or nameless characters, Boruto has yet to permanently kill off a established ally. While Naruto wasn't a series that was known for excessive deaths, it at least committed to quite a few that struck, and when Kishimoto got in his bag, there was a solid 5-year stretch where we had at least one death a year, and they all served a purpose. In contrast, Boruto has been more reluctant. All major allies are still alive post time skip, though I will give Ikimoto credit. Sealing Naruto away, very creative. Having Sasuke sealed into that tree, very creative. I'm not mad at that. That is a creative way to get around killing. It's why I've always said if you do kill, it needs to be done properly, but you don't have to just go on a butcher fest. If you're going to avoid it, you got to find some other way to raise the stakes. Boruto has managed to do that in some cases. Even when you look at Naruto, where there are major setbacks where Naruto quote unquote was dying after the Nine Tails was extracted from him, that was ultimately reversed due to Obito and then Ninja Jesus showing up into Naruto's personal space and touching Naruto to give him the power of 6-path Sage mode. He even saved Sasuke, touched him and gave him a brand new Rinnegan. No diddy. This makes it unlikely that Yodo, a character with minimum development, would be the first named character to die. If the series wanted to deliver a shock, it would make more sense for a bigger character who we have more reason to care about, like say Shikadai or Mitsuki, be the first tragic loss. I'm not advocating for Mitsuki to die. I'm just saying those are deaths that would really hit. Yodo, before she popped up in this current arc, Yodo hadn't been in the manga since 2016, almost a decade ago. Now, here's the other thing we have to look at, and I know this might piss some people off, and I ask you, listen until the end. It's not my intention to dunk on the series. That's not it. As you guys know, when I find something positive about the series, I talk about it, but when I take issues with something, especially like I did in 2018 to 2020, when I take issues with the writing, I do point it out. So I do feel like fake out deaths have the potential and have to a degree hurt tension in Boruto. While I did say, hey, stealing Naruto and Sasuke was a great workaround to it, I do think this is something that hurts the story altogether. While avoiding unnecessary death isn't necessarily a bad thing. Again, you don't kill characters for the sake of killing characters. I've never been a proponent of that. Boruto does risk lowering the stakes by making the battles feel like they're too safe. We'll use, without going into spoilers, the Jujutsu Kaisen contrast, where you have a series where death feels like it's real. Jujutsu Kaisen, especially after season 2 traumatized so many people that thought that this was going to be a bootleg Naruto with team-up missions, it was infamous for killing characters suddenly and brutally, showing the harsh realities of life that not everybody's story gets finished. While it did have fake out deaths, no spoilers, the series ultimately commits to losses where certain characters do stay dead. Other characters have a ambiguous fate where you don't know for a long time. Other characters have an ambiguous fate that require you to keep reading. Some characters got executed. Because Jujutsu Kaisen is a series established early on that major characters can die, every battle that took place afterwards, it carried high stakes. And you had the feeling not even the main character was safe. Then you have the One Piece element and the Eden Zero approach, the one that I do think that Boruto stands the chance of following down that path. Again, won't be going into spoilers here, but those are series that had fake out deaths that had consequences. So unlike Jujutsu Kaisen, where there was a bloodbath at times, One Piece and Eden Zero, they also use fake out deaths quite frequently, but they eventually at some point committed to a major loss. In One Piece, you had a character close to Luffy who was around for hundreds of chapters that finally ended up dying midway through the story. It changed the tone of the series permanently, and it spurred a major growth into Luffy. And Eden Zero, a character that we meet early on, after so many fake out deaths, the character in question finally died. It was irreversible, and it set a precedent that not all battles will end safely. And this was one of the more gut-wrenching deaths that we had in Eden Zero that carry long-lasting effects. If Boruto does follow this pattern, which I strongly suggest that it does, I think you have the better chance of raising the conflict in a meaningful way in the story. But if you do this, you must eventually commit to a shocking death to reinforce the stakes, and it has to be someone that readers are attached to. That's why I use Eden Zero and One Piece as examples. Now, in terms of, say, if I had to spitball and say who should be the first major death in Boruto, Yodo's potential death, while it would be tragic, it's not going to carry the same weight that is needed to establish real stakes. Instead, Boruto needs to kill a character off with stronger narrative ties. Maybe that's killing off someone like Ada. Maybe that's killing off Shikadai, because his death would emotionally break Shikamaru, and it would serve as a tragic moment for Boruto and Sarada, symbolizing that the old world, it is truly gone. Then you have Konohamaru, who looks like he's safe right now, but Konohamaru is a Naruto veteran who you could pull the trigger on, keep the Sarutobi clan dying in one part of the story tradition moving on. His death could push Boruto to the next stage of his growth. You have Mitsuki. If Mitsuki, say, dies at Kawaki's hands after learning the truth about omnipotence, it would drive home the irreconcilable conflict between Boruto and Kawaki. Could be why Boruto says, "I never thought that you would go this far." And even then, there's a backdoor way, because look at it from this perspective. Orochimaru has like 900 Mitsuki clones. It just won't be the same Mitsuki clone that we had. Very similar to what Amato had with his daughter, where he had all those clones of her. And speaking of Amato's daughter, that could also be someone that you end up killing off, now that we have, by extension, that investment with Amato wanting to revive his daughter. Even though she hasn't been on screen per se, her clone Delta's been on screen, and she's had a nasty attitude. You could do something with Akibi later on, but it would also require a little bit more build up to fully justify a situation like that. So in conclusion, I'll say this for my final thoughts to you guys. So Yodo's fake out death, it should be the last one in my opinion. If Boruto does want to maintain tension, especially when we have all these awakened Shinju hunting down people and they have yet to eat anybody, which this is ongoing. So at some point, we're gonna have to see it. As I've used this example before, it's like having the Akatsuki hunt down Jinchuriki to extract the Biju inside of them, and we never see what happens when a Biju gets extracted from a Jinchuriki. It's the same thing here with devouring a target. We have to see it at some point. Yodo's not a target, so it doesn't make sense necessarily for her to die. But should Yodo be the final fake out before the series commits to an irreversible death, I think that you could really get something done here. If she survives, the next major injury should not be reversed. This post-omnipotence world and Jura's very large looming threat, it demands undeniable, unavoidable consequences at some point. The moment a major character falls, the stakes of battle, they will feel real again, especially when you have someone as coldly logical as Kashin Koji already telling Boruto certain sacrifices have to be made. You are the only person I care about. You are the only piece we cannot afford to lose. Until we get to that moment, Boruto, I do feel, risks making the battles feel predictable, where no named character is ever truly in danger, only fodder that we have no attachment to. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking here on the left for that Boruto chapter review. Click here up top for that Gomo Gomo no Mi explain video from my One Piece channel, and click here on the right for the new Chainsaw Man chapter review from my Anime Explain channel.